Welcome back to the Crypto channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is still playing out the breakout on the larger time frames, but in the short term, after the latest pullback, we have just now confirmed a new bullish divergence, which we need to pay attention to, while Ethereum is now running into this critical line of support again, and also playing out a new bullish divergence, while Solana is now running into critical support in the short term as well. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, taking a look at the 4-day Bitcoin chart, and right now, not much has changed here on this chart over the last 1 day. So getting straight into the 2-day time frame, and the same can be said about this chart as well, because over the last 1 day, we're still trading above this important line on the 2-day time frame, which is sitting at approximately 65,000. So for as long as we're trading above that line, and especially while we're creating higher lows and higher highs, technically speaking, the larger price structure here on the larger time frames is currently still looking bullish, despite short-term pullbacks that we see along the way up. But with that being said, taking a look at the daily Bitcoin chart, and right now the price of Bitcoin is essentially still playing out a bit of a rejection from this area of resistance that I've obviously been warning about over and over again here on the channel, and that's sitting in between around 72,000 to 74,000. So exactly as expected in that price range, the price started to struggle in that area, and we basically rejected from that area. So for now, that is still acting as very strong resistance. And as for support, we do have a small amount of support at just above 69,000 right here based on this previous high right here, but we have a major area of support in this price range in between around 66.7k to 68.3k based on previous resistance now acting as new support, and also based on the volume profile indicator, also known as the VPVR indicator, currently showing a massive amount of traded volume in that price range acting as support. So for now, that's the main area of support and resistance to watch out for on the daily time frame, and we're ultimately still playing out a bit of a cool off on the daily time frame from overbought territories, which is helping to reset the RSI to the downside towards more neutral levels, which is technically now giving us some more room to the upside to potentially at some point continue this bullish trend later, kind of like what we saw last time just a couple of weeks ago. We hit overbought in the daily RSI, saw a bit of a pullback over the next half a week, give or take, nearly 1 week worth of a pullback, and then we ultimately bounced back up into overbought territories again, but that time around we went higher than the previous high because we saw that cool off along the way, resetting the RSI, giving us more room to the upside. And so these pullbacks along the way during a bullish trend basically make the trend sustainable. This is good to see during a bullish trend. For as long as we're still sitting in higher lows and higher highs, this is currently bullish. But obviously, if we reverse the higher low, higher high price structure, that would be a trend reversal signal. But for now, that has not currently happened. And if we're zooming into the shorter term on the 1 hour time frame, we have just confirmed a new bullish divergence on the 1 hour chart with lower lows in the candle closes in the price and higher lows in the 1 hour Bitcoin RSI, which is obviously a bullish divergence, the opposite of a bearish divergence, meaning we're likely going to see either some choppy sideways price action or possibly a slight bullish relief as the most likely outcomes just for potentially a day or so, just in the short term. And obviously, since my last video right around here, we did see a continued bullish relief in the short term, followed by another dump. So basically a classic scandal candle right here, which is essentially choppy sideways price action because we ended up pretty much right where we started. So we basically went sideways with volatility in between. So that is the definition of choppy sideways price action, which is basically what we saw since those oversold signals confirmed roughly around a day or two ago. And so we should be expecting pretty much the opposite right now to what we saw at this previous bearish divergence. So obviously back here, mostly choppy sideways price action with a slight bearish bias over the next few days or so. So we should be seeing pretty much the same thing, but with a very slight bullish bias. So drifting slightly to the upside, but honestly, I won't be surprised if we just see a bit of choppy sideways price action, especially for the remainder of the weekend, because usually over the weekends, we tend to see relatively low volatility most of the time on the weekends. And so that's what I'm expecting right now for the price of Bitcoin, potentially just for the rest of the weekend, once again, only in the short term. And then on the larger timeframes, obviously I shared my perspective here on the larger timeframes when we're talking about the longer term moves. But if you want to trade these moves in the price of Bitcoin or any other crypto, personally, I take most of my trades over on Bybit, so I'll make sure to leave a link to Bybit down below this video in the description and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link down below this video to make your Bybit account and deposit on that account, then you can get up to a $30,000 deposit bonus, but only if you use that link down below this video. And also, if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here, which is a 500 USDT position airdrop. So basically a free $500 trade as your first trade over on Bybit, but this is only available to you if you use the link down below this video to make your Bybit account and deposit on that account. So if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well check this out. Once again, first link down below this video. But for whatever reason, if you cannot access Bybit or if you cannot KYC on Bybit, there's also Bitfinex, which is another crypto exchange similar to Bybit, but you don't need KYC for Bitfinex, which means if you're in the US or the UK, for example, or another country where you might not be able to access Bybit, you can access Bitfinex. So I'll also leave a link to Bitfinex down below this video. And if you use that link, you can get up to a 5.5k deposit bonus. And only if you use that link, you can get an exclusive 10% discount on all trading fees on the Bitfinex exchange forever. But that is only if you use that link below this video to make your Bitfinex account. So as another option out there, other than Bybit, one that you can access from the US, for example, there's Bitfinex links down below if you want to claim those extra bonuses. But with that being said, taking a look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, looking at the last 1 week worth of price action, we can see some decent liquidity is now starting to build here in the short term. First of all, we have a decent amount of liquidity at around 68.7k to 68.8k, and more liquidity in between around 68,000 to 68.3k, and more liquidity at around 67.1 to 67.3k. And so that is the liquidity to watch out for that is closest to the price of Bitcoin as of right now. But we now have more liquidity building to the upside as well, starting at around 73,000 and going up towards around 73.7k. So in that price range right there, just above 73,000, we have a decent amount of liquidity building there as well. And in case you're new to the channel and you want to know what all of this means, essentially if the price crosses below the liquidity that's sitting to the downside, that would mean liquidating long positions, which would be bearish for the market, essentially causing potentially a bit of a long squeeze, pushing the price further to the downside. But on the other hand, if we cross above this upside liquidity right here, so if we break out above around 73,500, for example, that would be very bullish, likely triggering a short squeeze. And so essentially, those are just important levels on the price chart to pay attention to, because once we break one of those levels right here, that's where the price will likely accelerate further into that direction once we break one of these levels. But with that being said, taking a look at Ethereum on the 3-day time frame, right now we're still looking relatively neutral on the 3-day chart in between this support and this resistance. So this has not really changed over the last 1 day. So getting straight into the 12-hour time frame, and right now the price of ETH as of right now is running into this line of support again, which is sitting at around 2470, and we also have this area of support right here in between around 2440 to 2475. So we have major support right here on the price chart that we're running into as of recording this video. But if we break below this area, so if we break back below around 2440, then obviously, at least in the short term, that would be very bearish. We'll likely see a continued move towards the downside, down towards perhaps these local lows right here, sitting closer towards around 2.3k in the lower 2.3k price range. But with that being said, if we can hold this level of support again and form another higher low, bouncing from this ascending line of support, obviously that is good news. And while we're still holding above this level, technically we're still looking relatively good in terms of the larger price structure here, the higher low price structure. It's only if we break below this support in the short term, that'll be a very bearish signal. But while we're holding above this area, looking out for the next resistance in case we are to see another bounce here, we do have resistance in between around 2550 to 2580, and massive resistance in between around 2.7k to 2.8k. And that's exactly what I've been warning about over and over again here on the channel. Obviously, since before we saw these rejections, I've been warning about this major resistance, and so we obviously rejected from this area of resistance as expected. But with that being said, zooming further into the short term, looking at the 2-hour time frame, and right now history is basically repeating, because first of all, we saw this overbought signal in the 2-hour Ethereum RSI, essentially telling us that we're running out of room to the upside, as I warned about here on the channel. And basically we saw a pullback after that, very similar to what we saw last time, and then we confirmed that oversold signal right here, as I mentioned in my last video. video on the 2-hour Ethereum RSI oversold, telling us we're starting to run out of room to the downside. And so obviously after that oversold signal confirmed, we actually saw a bit of a bounce in the short term, followed by a classic scandal candle up and down, but ultimately we ended up pretty much right where we started when we saw that oversold signal confirmed. So we didn't really see a whole lot more bearish price action after that oversold signal, but we have now created a slight lower low in the price in the candle closes, while the RSI has created a higher low, which is a bullish divergence. And this is pretty much exactly what we saw last time, roughly around a week ago, give or take, because as you can see right here, we saw that overbought signal and then a pullback and then an oversold signal and then some choppy sideways price action and then a slight lower low in the price in the candle closes, while the RSI created a higher low, which is a bullish divergence. And then what came next was just a very slight bullish relief for the next couple of days here. Nothing too major, just for the next couple of days. So that's likely what's going to happen next here in the short term, just for potentially the rest of the weekend. A very, very slight bullish relief, mostly some choppy sideways price action as a likely scenario just over the weekend. But then if history continues to repeat, we could potentially pick up a little bit more bullish momentum, especially around the US election. That could be a possible catalyst, and we're likely going to see some volatility around that election day. But with that being said, taking a look at Solana on the daily time frame, and right now the price of Solana has rejected all the way from this resistance back down towards this significant area of support again, and that's sitting in between around 159 to 163. So like I've said recently here on the channel, that's a very important area of support to hold above, because if we break back below around 159, then at least in the short term on the daily time frame, so talking about the next few days or weeks following a break to the downside, that would be very bearish for Solana and could likely send the price at least down towards around 150, possibly even down towards 140 if we first break below around 159. But for now, that area is still currently acting as support. So obviously there's still the possibility we could see another bounce here. So we just have to wait and see as the price is now testing that support. But of course, for resistance, even if we see a bounce here, we still have this significant area of resistance that I've been warning about since before we saw this rejection here. And that's sitting in between around 183 to 187, which is pretty much exactly where we saw the rejection as expected. And another reason as to why this support is very important for the price of Solana is due to the fact that if we break below this area of support, that would be very bearish, because that would invalidate this inverse head and shoulders pattern, which is a bullish pattern. So once again, it would invalidate this bullish pattern right here if we break back below this area of support. So breaking back below 159 to 163, that would invalidate this pattern, which would be another bearish signal. But if we're zooming into the shorter term, looking at the 4-hour time frame, right now the price of Solana is technically still playing out the bearish divergence, but we're now running into some short-term support in between around 162 to 164, and technically still playing out the bearish divergence. But now that we've seen that oversold signal, which I mentioned in my last video, we're starting to run out of room to the downside. So now that the price is running into this support and we're running out of room to the downside, potentially just for the weekend, we could see a bit of choppy sideways price action. So potentially nothing too major just over the weekend, but then as the new week begins, and especially as we get closer to that US election, we could likely see more volatility around the election day. But for now, this is the situation in the short term, most likely going to play out a bit of choppy sideways price action around this support. But if we break below this support right here in between 162 to 164, in that case, we have this short-term area of support in between 157 to 159. And we also have this resistance right here in between 170 to 173 approximately. And as always, if you want to trade these moves in the price of any crypto, check out those links down below this video to claim those extra bonuses. And if you want to actually know how to trade crypto, no matter if the price is bullish, bearish, or chopping around sideways, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions. And the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.